Orale, man. Ed the Cholo Trucker here, Wrestling Rehab. Shout outs to all the junkies. We got a special one today. My goodness, man. I want to go ahead and I got so many questions for this man. But you know what? More than an interview, I think it's better just to kind of chop it up, man. So I hope it doesn't feel so much like interview sounds so much like interrogating somebody, man. So let's just go ahead and let's bring in the man that's known for the Master Lock, one, Mr. Chris Masters.
In the flesh. Well, not the flesh. Over the screen, baby.
Oh man,
Uh,
you know what?
uh,
It may be safer for everybody that it's over the screen, man, because you applied that master lock, which I want to get to in a second. But Chris, my
Still
brother,
got the grip. Still got it.
how you doing, my brother? How you doing, my man?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm just chilling. I'm used to usually working on a Saturday, but this
Mm.
Saturday I'm here at home in Los Angeles. So, just kind of kicking back, enjoying our nice weather out here, worked out, all that good stuff. And now spending my afternoon on in wrestling rehab, so to speak, with all you junkies, which I love. I
I
love all the
appreciate
play on
that.
words here.
I appreciate that, man. Are you originally from Los Angeles?
Yeah, man. West Side till I die. Born in Santa Monica, raised in West LA, and yeah, man. I'm Angelino through and through, man. Lakers, Dodgers, all that.
All right, man. So I bet you're keeping up with the NLCS, man. Yeah, for
Oh
dang
yeah, oh
sure.
yeah, oh yeah, man. Like Lake, I got to be honest. I mean, basketball is my first love. I mean, but I do obviously support the Dodgers, just being an LA guy, and yeah, all that. But
Mm.
Lakers, I bleed purple and gold. Like as a matter of fact, next to wrestling, basketball was always kind of my next love or hobby or whatever you want to call it. You know what I mean? And even up till even more throughout my adulthood because breaking into wrestling kind of changes your fandom a little bit. It
Mm.
just changes it. It can't be the same as when you're on the outside looking in, and everything's so like everything's such a mystery and so like cool and and all that. It's just different. So I can still relate to my fandom though. Prior to entering, I can still watch wrestling from like any time throughout my time growing up and still kind of really be entertained by it. A little harder to watch current wrestling like that, honestly, but I do stay up on it. I don't even
Well,
know if you asked that. I don't know how we got into all
no,
that, but
no, it's all good, man. So it's there, it's in stone. Chris Masters, Chris Adonis, which we'll get to. He he has gold bones with purple blood. So there you get that,
yeah,
man.
there it is.
Chris, so let me go ahead and ask you, man. Were you in sports growing up as a kid? What was childhood like for you?
I did some water polo and like I liked
Ooh.
I liked basketball since I was a kid, but I was never really good at it, unfortunately.
Mm.
So like if anything, it was more just something I did out of just for recreation or whatever. But so and as I kind of grew, the thing is, man, is like when I say I was a wrestling fan, I was literally like since I was 8, and it was everything to me. So there really wasn't much time for like I didn't really care about anything else. I did, again, basketball did kind of become a thing, and like I think when I had my couple years of lapse, that's what I did. But then I picked back up wrestling. But so like, there wasn't really, I did play some softball actually out here in Culver City. So, I dabbled in some stuff, but like honestly, I just knew pro wrestling was what I wanted to do. So I didn't really pay much focus into any of those or playing them in a serious level. Although, obviously that'd be beneficial, being well balanced in athletics. But again, just for me, I was just obsessive and that was all I really cared about, man. I mean, I did go, and to be honest, I did go through some baseball fandom as a kid too, though. It just, as I grew older, it became harder to keep up. The pace is just slow. So I like what they're doing in the game now as far as trying to keep it going a little quicker because
Right.
I think
Yeah.
you need that. It can't move so slow, man. Not with the way our brains are wired, and even worse, the brains of now, this younger generation. They'll never follow it. And then you have so many games. Anyways, I'm going on a rant, but like wrestling was always the main thing, so I didn't really mind much focus into the any of the other stuff. Bodybuilding, became a hobby, but it was in my pursuit to pro wrestling. And I never competed. Like I thought about it a couple times, but I also did kind of really see the point because it wasn't, you know, if anything, it would be just for vanity. Like it wasn't
Right.
for any real productive reason or anything like that. And so, you know, I just kind of took it up as a hobby and, you know, and so did that going into once I eventually got signed.
Okay. Well, let's get into that. So, look, Chris, everybody was a pro wrestling fan. You know, as little kids, you're watching wrestling. You and I are about the same age, man. We're watching wrestling. We're over there with our jackass buddies and
Not
wrestling.
everybody. You said everybody though.
Okay.
Not everybody.
Okay. Okay. You're
But
right about that.
but but the
But
beautiful part about wrestling is the people who are fans are passionate. I mean, I'm talking about the you and me's of the world. Even though, like,
right.
yeah, I'm in the business, and I said what I said. It's like that's why I recognize that. You know, like wrestling fans are passionate, like Star Wars fans or any other
Mm.
hardcore fan. But that's why I was still able to work.
Well,
Anyways, go ahead.
okay. What I'm trying to get to is that everybody thought to themselves, "Oh man, I'm gonna be a wrestler." Oh man, I mean, I had that thought to myself as well. My sons, you know, they grew up watching you. I'm not trying to make you seem old. I'm the same age you are. They grew up.
It's okay. It happens every weekend now. You know.
When I told them I'm going to interview you, my son, he was just like, "Oh man, he did the master lock and started swinging them around and everything, right?"
Well, that's good
Um,
to know because you know these kids, like, how are they gonna know? Like, thank God for the network, I guess, and YouTube.
Right,
Right,
right.
right.
What I'm trying to ask here, Chris, is everybody that loved wrestling growing up can see themselves becoming a wrestler, right? And then at some point it just kind of becomes like some fantasy that just never happened. When did you realize like, no, no, this isn't like everybody else. I really am gonna become a wrestling star. Everybody, all the kids talked about it growing up, but when did you realize like, oh, I'm different than them? To them, it was just some sort of kid
That's a great
type
question.
dream.
That's a great question. That's what I'm talking about right there. So I'm happy to put myself back in my brain from going through that whole phase. And I don't think it started like that at all. I think it really just started out with there was a day in middle school where, for whatever reason, it felt like it. I don't know if it was actually career day, but it felt like career day, and it was like proposed to all of us, like, "What are you gonna do with yourselves?" And I don't think I ever put like serious thought into that. And so when it was proposed to us, it just kind of seemed very simple. Like I looked around and like there was probably a wrestling magazine on my desk. I was
Mm,
throwing my friends into lockers. I was obsessed with it. And so it just felt like, you know, I don't know if it could have, like at that point, I didn't know if it could be a reality. I just know that like everything's pointing to this, you know, because like it just, even from that young night, it just felt like, well, what do you love? What are you passionate about? Which is still what drives me and should try to drive most people. You know what I mean? Like that's how you can get the most fulfillment out of things. But so like it just started like that. It's like this just seems this is everything to me. I'm obviously obsessed with this. This is all I think about. So I should pursue this. And but that didn't mean I took immediate action. It just meant that like that was my thought at that point. Because I did like around that time too, I was doing backyard wrestling. And
oh wow.
but like, you know, we started doing it like on a quote unquote kind of serious level. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
people would come out and we'd have the music and we would design our
yeah.
gear and we were all modeled after WWE guys, though, was the funny part. And I was
Right.
Triple H of all people, but that was because Shawn Michaels was taken. So,
Okay.
but like one of my friends who I met around that time had done, I think, a little bit of wrestling training. So like we started working out the high spots. We were taking big bumps, and this was just on like grass. You know what I mean? It was still like in a
Right.
park. And
Yeah.
so fast forward, what happened is I think my mom finally saw one of the videos, and she was just so alarmed by it that, and she had known. I think we were already made aware of a wrestling school, which was UPW out here. And
Mm,
so that's when she was like, you know what? If you're going to do this, then we need to just put you in a school so you don't kill yourself. And like, and to her, it wasn't, she was supportive. She wanted me to go into acting and stuff like that, which I did a lot of that when I was young. And so I think she might have been more supportive than most parents because she still looked at wrestling like, okay, it's a form. It's not what I would have wanted him to do because you're beating yourself up, but it's still entertainment. You know, if you make it, you'll make good money, all that stuff. So, but you know, first and foremost, she didn't want me to kill myself. So she's like, you know, get trained and, you know, like go to school for it. So that's what we did. And I was only like, I was probably about 16 at that point because, you know, honestly, it didn't last long. I ended up getting hurt like about 4 months in, and I ended up having surgery on my ankle. And I took a couple years off, and then I focused. That's when I kind of focused a lot more on the bodybuilding aspect.
Man, you know what? We
Oh,
could probably.
but wait, just to answer your question though, because you know that doesn't answer your question. So all throughout this, you know, you asked about when did I know that I could do this or whatever.
Mm,
So all this time, even going into like now this injury and then the 2 year layoff, I still did. I just knew that that was my passion and I was focused on it. And I knew that like I didn't not have the tools. Like I was like decent height, obviously. I knew that my dad was like a bodybuilder. Like I knew I had genetics to get built, and it was already starting to show. But it wasn't until like after I took that 2 years off and I came back. And at that point I was about 18 going on 19. It was when I came back that I realized that like, oh, you know, you have a good shot of making it. Because it was just like I came back and I was at that point basically the masterpiece, you know, like I really had kind of evolved and like focused on that and came back. And, you know, I was only 18, but I, you know, looked like I was in my late 20s, at least in terms of build. And, you know, I was kind of immediately just got a lot of attention, a lot of the attention that I recognized like Cena was getting that first time. Because the first time out I started with Cena out here
mm.
and I saw the attention he got. And so once I came back that second time, I kind of like, I got a lot more of that. And you could just tell that like, oh, you know, not to say that was a guaranteed start, but I've got a good shot at this. Like I have all the tools, everything's kind of falling into place. Like I have, you know, especially at that point, because it was very focused on, you know, if you're decent, if you're a good sized guy with a look, you know what I mean? Like
Mm,
that's
mm.
going, you know, that's kind of what Vince really kind of leaned towards. So, you know,
Yeah,
that's kind of, and so it wasn't until then, it took years before I actually felt the way you're talking about, like, oh, like this is going to really happen, or I've got a shot at this.
man, you know what? We could do a whole live about backyard wrestling. I used to go to those things. Those things were extremely. I don't think that stuff happens today. As a matter of fact, the law started cracking down on a lot of that
Oh, I
years
bet.
ago. Yeah, you know,
I bet.
for those who are a little bit younger, I don't think this stuff happens anymore. But backyard wrestling was a thing. There was even a video game that because it got so popular, it was just a bunch of high school kids and to go to somebody's backyard and there was tables and barbed wire and dudes would go at it, man. It was quite the
You
experience to
know,
see. I
I
never
feel
got
I
into it.
I feel like it's somewhat, as much as this is bad to say because it's dangerous. I mean, for a lot of
Mm.
people, it's kind of rite of passage. I mean, if you, oh, up there goes my camera. If again, if you, oh, are we good?
Yeah, we're good. We're good.
Are
We're
we
good.
good? Damn tripod. Uh, you know, if you kind of grew up on this, like we've talked about, then chances are at some point, at least, you've casually, sorry, I'm just trying to finagle this thing. That's kind of angled. Is that all right? That's all right, right?
We're good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sit up.
we got you.
You know, chances are at some point you've gone out in the backyard or the front yard and you've, you know, bounced your friend off the imaginary ropes and, you know,
Oh
and,
yeah.
or
Oh
put
yeah,
on
yeah.
or tried the sharpshooter or the figure four and turned it over the figure, all that stuff, man. And then that might have evolved into like, you know, the more, you know, like the backyard league, so to speak, you know, where you got your
Mm.
guys and you guys set it up like an event. Like I'm sure I know at the time I didn't know it, but I know now that we weren't the only ones obviously doing that. You know what I mean? I guess Mick Foley
Yeah,
was
no.
might have even been the first, right? Wasn't that Mick's story? Didn't he do some backyard, right? He jumped off the roof of his house or something. So
I,
maybe he
I
was
mean,
the first to
it was
maybe do
huge.
that. Yeah, 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 yeah. So it
Yeah.
was fun though. It was fun.
What was the most gruesome thing or somebody get hurt the most in a backyard wrestling match?
Oh man, I can't remember honestly, but I do know that like one of the things I always remember is me taking like a backdrop kind of thing off of the ladder and the thud hitting the grass. And I think that's actually what my mom saw. And I just think back to it and I laugh because it was such a ridiculous bump to take. You know what I mean? Like it was just insane. But at the honestly at the time too though, like I was skinny. So
Mm,
I don't think it was as impactful as it'd be now on my body. Um,
right,
so I
right.
survived it, but I know that there was worse than that. Like I know we had a friend that his name was Tommy Malice. You might have even heard of him. I don't know, but I think he's since passed actually. But he was our hardcore guy. He loved all that. So I'm sure that at some point he either lit something on fire or went it through thumbtacks or something, and I'm just maybe not remembering right
Uh,
now.
yeah, man, those suckers got very brutal. I went to a few of those, and they got very, very brutal, man. Those backyard wrestling matches. But
Yeah, I see. I don't know. It's weird for me because when I see this stuff, I know that like a lot of fans like, and again, I still feel like I'm a little connected to my fandom, like I've told you, but like
mm,
I just like I don't mind blood and stuff like that, but I don't like it when it's overly gruesome. Like, and I don't know. I guess maybe that's why I liked ECW, but I didn't like it. Wasn't like my go-to. You know what I mean? It wasn't like I mean. I love the guys, a lot of the guys there, but not even the ECW is that gruesome. But like I don't know. Just some of the stuff I see is just kind of hard to stomach. Like for
mm.
example, there was what was it, Swerve and Page, who did the thing where he bled and Swerve bled into Page's mouth, and I was just like, oh, like that's just
Oh,
I don't know, man. It's kind of nasty, man. Like my God, like it just feels very it's not in good taste, I think, and like
right.
it's not even about me. I try to think about like what a general audience, but then again, I don't know, maybe that sector of the audience really like I know that there's a lot of fans who really gravitate towards that. It's never kind of my genre, you know what I mean? Like I
Mm,
like to consider like I like all wrestling and I like some of that, but I don't like it when it's getting, when it becomes like the whole, when there's a good story that
right.
builds to that, yes, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? But just for the sake of being gruesome and doing a ton of it.
I'm with you, Chris. I think it get like I was a fan of ECW as well, but at some point it gets
Like
jaded and
Stone
you
Cold
lose it.
bleeding in the sharpshooter, like that is
Exactly.
art. That's
Right.
art.
Okay.
Like that's
Exactly.
beautiful. But
If
it's like
ev- if
it just
every
worked
single
there.
match, no, I'm with you. If you have every single match, if every single match has blood and broken tables and destruction all over the place,
There definitely shouldn't be every match. You know what I mean?
that
Like
that
that.
that, that that's my point. If every match is like that, then you lose it.
Well,
When
yeah,
you
then
have
it's just
certain matches.
it's just how are you going to top anything too? But like it should still be based in wrestling and sprinkled in with some of that. At least that's how I would
Yes.
preferably like my wrestling. But I don't know, I haven't like, I'd have to, I need to watch one of these GCW shows and see kind of how they structure their cards. I mean, I know it's not all blood and gore. There's some good wrestling on there too.
Yeah, I mean, if every match is a Hell in the Cell match, then you lose the prestigeness, the specialty of what Hell in the Cell is.
Oh
So
yeah,
that's
yeah,
why
yeah, for
you
sure.
bring that every now and then. So that's why it's like, whoa, Hell in the Cell.
But again, like, and with all that being said, but then you go back to the Swerve Page thing, and it's
Mm,
I could do without that. Like, you know what I mean? I don't
right,
need when it goes that far. It's like I don't know. This is just what are we doing now? You know what I
well,
mean? Like Stone Cold are that I don't know. I don't know. Questionable. Like, but
right,
maybe I'm in a
right.
minority. Who knows?
No, look, one of the images in wrestling that I will always remember is having Jake the Snake Roberts, his Snake Damien, bite Macho Man Randy Savage on the arm. That
Yeah.
will never go away.
Yeah.
But,
Oh, that was
but
crazy. And we were kids watching that. And I
yeah,
think we were probably too young to even grasp. Like, I know that we were shocked by it, but like, I feel like I would be just as shocked as an adult, if not more. I might be more shocked than as an adult because you just kind of really you can grasp the gravity of it. As a kid, I don't know, man. Like, how could you grasp? You see it and you're
Right.
like, oh my God, but you also have to think like, maybe there's something behind this. But then again,
Yeah.
as an adult, will you be able to watch it and be able to see like, oh, wait a minute, that's a real snake biting macho, and that's really happening on top. Like, anyways, that's interesting. You brought that up. That's really good.
Chris, did you say your dad was a bodybuilder?
Well, I wouldn't say a bodybuilder like competed, but he was always into working out, and like I didn't really know him throughout growing up, but the one thing I did know about him from what my mom had told me is that he was a built guy, and you know, and that did bodybuilding, something like that. He's a muscle man, all that, she'd say that type of stuff. So,
Mm.
but and, and he maintains that to this day. He's still like he's had like his shoulders and his hips worked on, but he still works out every day. But I don't think he lifts heavy or anything like that.
What made you want to get the physique that you got that became, the masterpiece? Because I mean, your physique was like impeccable. I mean, it definitely stood out. What made you say, like, dude, I'm gonna have like the best body, man, when I step out there?
Nothing. I didn't. I just knew that like I needed to focus on that some. Obviously, I didn't realize that I was going to be like it was going to become a big part of my whole thing, and I was going to be called the masterpiece. Like I was just trying to like, build myself up because again, I saw like, oh, okay, that's to get yourself in the game, you got to do that part, and then there's the other things too that you have to develop, obviously. But like, and I saw that again when I first came to UPW. I'd started working out, but it didn't show yet. Like, if anything, I was probably overweight because I was trying to eat a lot because I was skinny. But John Cena and there was another guy named Bad Boy Basil, who both just a few months in got signed and they got all the attention. And what did they have in common? They were like built like Basil kind of almost looked like the Ultimate Warrior. Honestly, he had the potential to do something. He just had like a lot of issues already at that point and Cena obviously was Cena. Like
Mhm.
he's been ridiculous. But so that kind of, and then I got injured, and so that kind of showed me like, okay, I need to focus on that part a little more, and like I got to at least get built, and so I did that, and obviously it got the attention I wanted. It got me in the door, and but again, I didn't realize that like the next thing I knew I was going to be the masterpiece and it was going to be a selling point, like, cause you can't really know that you're going to, like, cause a lot of guys were doing all the same thing. I mean? It wasn't like my routine was any different from all the other signed guys there. You know what I mean? All the other signed guys were also, you know, working out, supplementing or whatever else, you know what I mean? And, so, that's where it just comes, everybody, just thinks like, oh, you can take something and get a certain. No, it doesn't. That's if that were the case, everybody would have been the masterpiece. You know what I mean? Like a lot
Right.
of so it comes down to other factors. It's work, genetics, it's consistency, it's just if you know what the hell you're doing or how much you actually put into it. Like so it's really just a big combination of all that. But again, if there was just some secret formula to taking something and working out and getting there, again, everybody would have been some version of, a Chris Masters or Scott Steiner or whoever,
Right.
whichever body guy you want to talk about.
Yeah, you just not get take supplements, squeeze out 5 push-ups, and next thing you know, you're super shredded and ripped. You got to put
No,
in the work.
I just knew I was putting in the work, being consistent about it. It became a hobby. I educated myself and I just, you know, I I valued that over my friendships. I wasn't going to sacrifice a workout to go hang out or anything like that anymore. Like it became, and then eating every 3 hours became like my life, eating out of Tupperware while working jobs. So, I just really applied myself and then it just ended up being like, ended up being a big part of the whole thing, the whole gimmick and everything, Again, I didn't anticipate being called the masterpiece or being a body guy, you know what I mean, so to speak, or
I,
anything like that.
I,
I mean, because my favorite Ultimate Warrior got me watching, so like I was influenced by that, and I like to draw physiques, but my favorites were not necessarily the bigger guys, but more athletic and the guys that can move well, being, Sean, Brett, Flair. Perfect was big, but
Mm,
he moved real well. Perfect was another
okay.
one, you know. So
Yeah, yeah, and I definitely want to get into the masterpiece and your debut. You got somebody asking here about your debut, but before we get into that, how long were you working before you got the call from WWE? How long were you, in the indies and lower promotions?
I didn't really do any of these. I took the 2 years off, focused on the bodybuilding, came back to UPW as I kind of planned at like, about 2 years later, 18 years old now, going on 19, and I started training again. And very quickly, I was on the radar. Like I ended up like just a couple months in, I think I went with the UPW group to uh, probably the Staples Center or the Honda Center, the Pond. And so they saw me, and I think I was on their radar from that point, and I was getting kind of, I'm sure Rick kind of indicated that to me at certain points, so I kind of knew that. But they picked me up right away. But so I kept on with my training, and it was honestly, it's probably about like 6 to 9 months within coming back from when I came back after the 2 years, like where I got signed, and very shortly thereafter, went down to Louisville, OVW. So it happened
Oh
pretty
yeah.
quick because I was still, by the time I got to OVW, I was 19. So
Wow.
I think I got signed at 18, or I was, and then like, but by the time I got to Louisville, I was 19. Yeah, I
Okay.
was young.
Okay.
Yeah, I was young.
And you were there for a few years. I mean, everybody remembers your debut on Raw, right, against Steven Richardson. But how many matches did you have that were, say, at house shows or dark matches
Oh, well,
before
okay.
you
So,
actually hit television?
well, here's the thing. So I was at OVW for about a year, maybe actually a year and a half before I started, and I stayed in Louisville, but I basically got called full time on the road. And that was like maybe 6 months before I even debuted. So, like at 20, I was already full time on the road, but I was just doing, the live events. And then at TVs, typically I would do the dark match before the shows. And that was so they could see me and so I could get the experience and all that. And also, and that was a great way to do it actually, because it also, I needed the road experience. Like it's so funny how you can go into a gig like that and you start traveling at that age, and there's just so much that you don't know about, about like just little life hacks of traveling. Like, you know what I mean?
Mm.
Like you have to learn all these things in addition to the wrestling and the etiquette of wrestling and the art of wrestling in terms of what you're doing. So, I mean, it was really overwhelming. Like when I'm thinking about it now, just because I was having to learn all of that stuff. And, you know, I had people helping me, but like I think I probably needed a lot more help, honestly. I mean, I couldn't even rent a car, I
Okay.
remember. Like, so I don't know how we got around that, but we did somehow.
So you were 22 years old on Monday Night
No,
Raw when you made your debut?
no. I was okay. So I signed and I was at OVW. So I started on the road at 20, and I
Mhm.
was already, by the time I debuted, I was 21. So 20, 21
21
on. Yeah,
against on Monday Night Raw against Steven Richardson?
yes,
Wow, man. Wow. Look,
yes.
I'm gonna tell you this, Chris. When you came out, I was like, okay, who's this guy? But let's talk about the vignettes first, man. I mean, it's like, hey, this masterpiece, and it kind of takes you back to like these almost kind of Roman days, and the cameras on
I
your
was like,
body, and you're
yeah.
doing these things, and the vignettes, man. Where were you shooting those vignettes? How did you feel shooting those vignettes? And who came up with the character of the masterpiece? And it's like, man, you know what? You get the body. Is it something that you were cool with? Did you want it? Were you just like, hey, give me
Uh,
whatever? I just want to get in there.
okay. So let me think about all this. You said, oh, so first of all, with the vignettes,
Mm.
yeah, they were really cool. And I don't know for sure, but I feel like I was one of the last people to actually get vignettes. You know, like they might have done some more maybe recently, but like honestly, if I was one of the last to get true vignettes like we remember them from back in the day. And yeah, I do remember vaguely shooting them. I remember because Vince came in, they had me at their studio and they had me on that rotating platform. And Vince had come in at one point to give some direction and show me, I guess, I can't remember what his direction was, but it was some, you know, helping me out with the posing and seeing the shots and stuff like that. So from what I remember, he was there for, you know, just maybe about 5 or 10 minutes. But, you know, it was all very cool to me because it was, you know, I was in Stanford, I had seen headquarters, you know, shooting your vignette. I mean, imagine. Um, and
Okay.
in terms of the character, so like a lot of things do, I imagine in pro wrestling, things just kind of started falling into place. Like I got to Louisville. I didn't really have any direction. You know, I was obviously one of the better built guys. I mean, that's why I was signed, right? Like,
Mhm.
too, you know, everybody had like kind of probably reason they were signed. Either, you know, Matt Morgan was built, but he was also a giant. So he was signed because he was a giant. And
Right.
Mickey was signed because she was a, you know, an indie, great indie wrestler. You know, she had everything, you know, kind of going for everybody had kind of something like that. But, you know, for me, it was my body. I think I started recognizing that and being known for that a little at that point. And Matt Morgan, from what I remember, at one point we were sitting around just, you know, chilling in Louisville after a practice or something. And Matt, you know, I'd already had my name changed to Masters, so I was just rolling with that at that point. And Matt just at one point had said Masterpiece. And, you know, it was like a light bulb went off. And very soon after, it was pitched to Jim Cornette. And Jim Cornette, I'm sure, loved it, I think, because he just ran with it right away and I became the masterpiece Chris Masters. And, you know, then things, you know, so that started kind of falling into place. And then from what I remember too, uh, I
Were
gave,
you okay with it, Chris? Were you okay? We're like, yeah, that's cool. I actually kind of
yeah,
like it.
I just liked that, like I was, you know, guys were coming in just with their names at that point. So I thought it was kind of cool, like, oh, the masterpiece Chris Masters, it worked. Like I was still getting comfortable with Masters and all that stuff because it was like, okay, this can be my name, Masters. Do I like it? And sometimes you don't know for sure, you know, when it's going to
Mm,
be yours. But I just liked that everything was kind of coming together. It's like, oh, I have a gimmick name now. I have something I can work with. You know, I'm the masterpiece. And so, you know,
right.
that kind of helps. And I also became aware that I gave Vince some Paul Mr. Wonderful vibes. So, you know, they had me study a little bit of him and
There you go.
yeah, yeah. And like
I,
honestly,
I,
I was never like Paul was a little before my fandom and
mhm,
like even when I watch him, like I like him, but he was never one of my guys. But I did work with him and you know, he was really great actually to work with. Just the funny thing was is you know the stuff he was teaching me like I remember it was down here in LA when they did the WrestleMania they had Paul already coming down for something but they also wanted him to work with me as long as he's going to be there in the ring
mm,
and you know so he was working with me and he was from what I remember he was showing me how to have like real man intensity in the ring and believing in your stuff and but I was just funny because I was so young in my development and just so young in life that I don't think I was able, you know, could see what he was doing, but as far as actually like channeling some real stuff like he was wanting me to do, I wasn't capable of doing that at that point. Like fast forward now, it's like I understand completely and I'm able to really like if I need to channel some anger in the ring, I like it's cake, you know, it's easy. So
okay.
but anyway, so that you know that's a long answer and a lot of extra stuff, but that was kind of yeah, I was fine with it. I just like things were coming together, and I was starting to have an identity, and you know, I don't think I well, and here's actually before we move off of that, the thing is I don't think I ever wanted to be like the body guy, so to speak, because it just felt like a typecast to me, and I knew what went with that, and also because like you know I wanted to be more of a guy who could work well in the ring and stuff like that. So I think I
Mm,
liked the fact that it was my ticket and I had something going for me, but I didn't because I know it really bugged me as time went on that I was looked at like, I was just being cast like, oh, he's just a body guy. When like I appreciated great workers. Like again, like I love Sean, Brett, all those guys. So to me, uh, it was bittersweet. It was more sweet than bitter. It was maybe sweet bitter because I was in and all that, but it wasn't kind of what I would have wanted for myself. If you were, if you were to ask my 12-year-old self, like what I saw for myself, I wouldn't have been like, oh, he's a body guy and not, not known as a great worker or not focused more on that part of the craft.
Yeah, let's man, I got so many questions about that. But before we get to that, let me go ahead and ask you this. So, okay, so you're about to make your debut on Monday Night Raw against Stevie. Everybody remembers that. Everybody remembers. Did you feel that? Was there an extra pressure? Like, hey, you're gonna be on television because, like you said, you've already worked dark matches. You've already worked in front of fans. You've already worked, whether in dark matches on Monday Night Raw, whatever it may be. But the cameras weren't on you. Was there a different? Did it seem the same to you, or was there like, wow,
That's
now
another
the
great.
cameras are on?
That's another great question, man. You're killing it. You are killing it because I don't think anybody's ever asked that because I've only ever spoken it. Yeah, it's hugely different. Like even though the setting was the same, the ring was the same, the arena is the same, the crowd was the same, and everything. When it came to be going from that to being live on Raw, it felt dramatically different. It was much more like, oh my God, and felt much more fast paced. Like, I don't know, it just felt drastically different. So to answer your question, yes, yes.
You, you know, you played.
It's a good question because you wouldn't know for sure. Like it could very easily feel the same. Like, oh, it's just live on TV. That's the only difference. But no, it just like I don't know, man. It definitely felt like sink or swim. It's all on the line. Go out there and do it. And because I felt a lot of pressure, and and I ended up obviously breaking Stevie's nose, which sucked. That was horrible. And I also
Right.
had food. I also had food poisoning, so it was just like I don't know. I feel like I was so sick that I probably wasn't even able to feel the pressure as much as I might have if I was just normal. Because I ended up having food poisoning that day, which like killed me. But it was definitely still a lot of stress. It was a lot of like, you only have one chance to make a first impression. I remember Michael Hayes telling me that, like, thanks a lot. Like you put that pressure on me, you know what I mean? I think a lot of people were probably wondering if the pressure is why I ended up hurting Stevie, but which I don't even know. Like even when I look back on that, I have no good explanation. It was misplaced, mistimed, but like I definitely was not aiming for his face. And you know, so I just, I thank God that he's still, he was able to come out of that and he doesn't hate me or anything like that.
Right.
And I wear it as a badge of honor, man, that did happen. And I knew that like I knew to myself, I'm like, wow, you just really messed this guy up, and like, last thing anybody, it's one thing if people just don't want to work you because you suck. It's a whole nother thing if you're reckless. Nobody wants to work with you. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And so I just knew like I cannot hurt, like I lost any lead. I can't hurt anybody else. That's it. And I haven't since then. That like since Stevie Richards, now I've wrestled, man, close to 20 years and still haven't hurt anybody. If somebody did get hurt with me, it was, it was not by my fault. It was either, they tripped over, the mat or twisted an ankle or whatever. So I definitely wear that as a badge of honor. And let me just knock on wood.
Right. Yeah. No, I heard Stevie speak about that before. That I was in the first match with Chris Masters and he broke my nose.
Wow.
But you had food poisoning.
Yeah.
Did you tell everybody in the back?
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
what
They
was
knew.
what was the response? Was the response was like, oh man, take
Well,
some Pepto and get out there, or
It was bad. There was no way to hide it. I was with the doctor all day, and they were basically the only thing that gave me any relief was I was drinking ginger tea. But like really most of the day I couldn't hold anything down. Like anything I tried to drink kind of I threw up. You know, so
Uh,
like by the time I did debut, honestly, I lost like 10 pounds, which I don't think it was a good 10 pounds because I think I was more deflated. Like I know a lot of people think, oh, maybe you'll be more ripped, but I don't think I looked more ripped. I think I just kind of looked deflated just because of everything I'd been through in the day. So, you know, when your whole debut is built upon an unveiling, you know, that kind of sucks because it's like, you know, you're trying to look your best. And I don't know, when you're sick like that, it's hard to think that you can feel your best because you're just deflated. But I remember also too, Stephanie McMahon kind of indicating that maybe I might be nervous, which I was like, yeah, I'm nervous, but that is not what this is. You know what I mean? Like I am legit, and like I just know clear as day what it was too, because I remember the night before we had made a long road trip and we stopped at some gas station and I was starving and I ate a sandwich from some gas station out in the middle of nowhere. So, you know, just lesson to everyone, never do that. Don't eat a sandwich at some random truck stop or something like that,
eh,
because, I ate that and all I remember is maybe an hour later on the drive, my stomach just kind of rumbled out loud a
yeah.
little bit and I didn't think much of it. And then the next morning, I couldn't even get one bite of breakfast down. So like, and then, I was just sick all day and it was a rough start.
No, listen, I'm a 100% vouch for that. I'm a truck driver. Do not go to one of these little rinky dinky gas stations and get yourself an egg sandwich or anything of that nature. Okay. Go get yourself some good food because I've had that problem myself.
And I have a new, like, not that Michael Jordan needed any more respect because obviously he's most likely the GOAT,
Oh, right.
but
Yes.
like we found out not too long ago that his flu game was actually food poisoning. So like I have another level of respect for him because to imagine his food poisoning being anything like what I had that day and to go out and play a basketball game, like wow, like man, that had to be like as hard as it was to even just do a match on Raw, like I don't know, a basketball game would have to be harder because, like, in wrestling we're at least working with each other. In basketball, it is not that. Like I know they're not beating on each other, but again, you got to stay in front of people, you got to stay mentally sharp. Like I don't know, it's just that's crazy.
Yeah, that's the question I'm gonna get to right now. Cheryl, you got people tapping in on the live, man, asking a
I
couple of
saw that.
questions. But I definitely want to get to let's get in to your finisher. Now, everybody here's a cool thing about you, Chris, and your finisher, right? It's a full Nelson. It's kind of a boring. Everybody knows the finisher, but you made it extremely exciting. Like I said, when I told my son, "Oh, guess who I'm interviewing? The masterpiece." Chris, immediately he gets up. He's all like, "Oh, he used to go like this and just." "Ugh." Did you ever think? Did you come up with it? If not,
No,
did you?
no,
Would
because
you ever? Did it ever come to your mind like, I don't know, man. I don't think that move's gonna get over because it's such a simple move. Everybody knows it. But man, did that
yes,
move get over the way you used to do it, Chris? How did that come about?
I thought all the things you just said because it was so simple. Like, and people were
Right.
doing much more elaborate and complicated finishes at that point.
Mm.
So I had a lot of doubt, and it wasn't my idea because of that. We played around with some finishes, but I think nothing was really clicking. They wanted me to have a finish that, like, my whole debut was gonna, or like my first couple months was gonna be built around the finish. They knew they wanted that. They just didn't know what finish was gonna be. So we played around with all kinds of different things. Like at one point I was practicing the pile driver in OVW. We were trying different things over the shoulder, uh, and I think the one nothing was clicking. And I think one day I'm sure it was either Hunter or Arn who thought of the full Nelson. And from what I remember, it was strictly on the premise of, hey, we need to recondition fans to believe in holds. They're just like, so that, we got to put some credibility behind holds and simple stuff again so that the fans, so that we don't have to do always these crazy things. Because, there were a lot of injuries that happened too. You know what I mean? So I remember a lot of those factors being involved. But to go to what you're saying, like, you know, I did my part and then the company did their part in terms of putting it out there and we built it right. So like it ended up, and I think what really kind of helped it is when I talk to a lot of, you know, I don't want to say kids now because it's guys in their 20s and stuff like that, guys who are just entering the business or even older fans. They tell me about how, you know, as they were kids, that they would do it to each other at school a lot. And so I think what kind of helped it is its simplicity, is the fact that I just imagine if I was watching wrestling at the time and I saw Chris Masters and I was 8, 10, 12 years old, whatever, that at some point I would have snuck up on one of my friends and applied a full Nelson on him and then challenged him to get out of it. Like I guarantee you I would have. So
Mhm.
I think that was part of it too, is like it was just so easy to get onto people. So people are seeing on TV. And then like when you also kind of realize that it's legit, really. I mean, if you hook it and you push a guy's head forward
Yeah.
and you restrict the blood flow, like it's not that you're choking a guy, it's the fact that you're cutting off blood flow and then they turn purple and they pass out is the next step. So like, you know, or you could swing them around. And I saw like it was funny because my first exposure to YouTube was somewhere around 2008, nine, maybe 2008. It had to be. And the first videos I saw that had anything to do with me were kids master locking each other, but doing it viciously, like swinging each other like rag dolls. Like it was kind of alarming. You know, it was like, oh wow, you're not necessarily such a positive influence. Because I mean, it was like some of these kids were swinging. They were literally swinging their friends like way too hard, like
Right.
way
Right.
too hard. And so that part, but you know, it was obviously it was very, and that's funny. That was my introduction to YouTube, believe it or not, was that stuff. So like, yeah, but I think it was the simplicity. The simplicity, it's legit. It hadn't been used. Like people didn't remember at that point as much. You know, the Warlord didn't use it as I don't think as like as noteworthy. It wasn't built like a ton. Like it was built in
Mhm.
matches, but not with the challenge. And then hurt it was hurt. Like so, it'd been a long time too. I think so. I think all those factors, man. And then they did it right. You know, they kind of they found a way to make it, I guess, entertaining and not too long, and make each one different, building into it until you finally. Because I kind of look at it like it was build, build, build until you finally get to the biggest one, which was the Shawn Michaels one, which was then now a main event on Raw. And then, you
Mm.
know, everything after that was obviously there were more after that, but you know, really that was kind of the culmination, I think, of the initial build of it was building it, you know, building it up and then building it to that big one with Shawn and then me kind of going off into whatever I was going into after that.
No, it was. I mean, you know, you've seen it in wrestling before, but the way you did it was on a different level. It made it so damn cool. It looked so vicious. The way you swung them
I swung
around.
it, yeah.
Yeah, you would swing it around. You slam them down. It was something so
I, I
simple.
I still have that in me, honestly. But it's funny because I think about it. I'm like, I don't swing guys around like that as much anymore. But like under the right circumstances, definitely could still.
Chris, something so simple, you made it to one of the coolest moves. You really,
Thanks.
really did, man. And it actually became a gimmick. It's like, who could get out of the master lock?
Yep.
You know, I remember John Cena over there, "Ah," trying to get out of there. It was a cool thing to see, man. It was a really, really cool thing to see. So, man,
Yeah, but to
you
go
don't
back
know.
to what you were asking though, I had a lot of doubt, man. I didn't know. You know, I didn't know if it was gonna work. I thought this might be too boring. You know, like there was a lot of stuff going through my head. You know, because you know, I still tried to look at it through my fan with my fan hat on, you know, like which not harder to do, but like, you know, that's the best thing you can do is see if you can stay connected to that, then you could kind of at least see like if you like something or don't, or well, you know, if it'll come across right.
Yeah, man. Awesome, awesome move, man. Something so simple. You made it damn cool as heck, man. Chris, I mean, we're kind of running up against time, man. So I'm just gonna kind of get to a few questions here.
Sure.
What happened with you know, you were at the big times, the WWE. You weren't done with wrestling. Obviously, you're still wrestling now, and I kind of want to get to that as well. What happened, man? Were you not happy there? Was there something going on without having to bury anybody or name names? What happened with
No,
Chris Masters there?
I, I don't know. I came back and I just think I never had the company behind me the way I did in the first run, and I didn't have, so I never really got the push the second time around. Like, uh, Vince, from the best I can tell, was a very hot and cold person, and like somewhere down the line, he got like he was like I was hot with him, and somewhere down the line, I became cold, and I don't know if I ever got back in good traction with him. But like on my second run, I was basically throughout the most of it on the B show, which was superstars or whatever. But I was given a lot of time on those shows, so I was able to really kind of work on my in-ring craft and get like a lot better on that respect. But again, I still didn't have the push or anything like that, and didn't. Yeah, I could just tell I wasn't really uh in their big plans or anything. You know what I mean? Like I was, if I was on the big show, I was usually losing and stuff like that. So, it got to the point where, I mean, you know, don't get me wrong, I was released. So it wasn't, but like, it was also getting to the point where I was like, shoot, you know what I mean? Like, I've worked so hard, I've gone a lot better. Like if I can't turn this around or they get them to want to do something with me, like what am I doing? What's this? You know what I mean? What's this going to be? So, it was just like, I could never really get that momentum again and get that push with the company. You know what I mean? It just wasn't to be.
When
But it wasn't anything in terms of diminishing work. I mean, even because to this day, like I've worked now better than I ever have. But in terms of getting the opportunity, it's like,
yeah,
maybe it's there, maybe it's not. I don't know.
is there a lot of politics in the back as favoritisms, and it's like, well, you gotta be on the good side of this person. Everybody I talk to always say like, hey, Undertaker's the leader of the locker room. Make sure you're on his good side. But then there's also the Vince aspect there. Um, was there any avenues that you thought that you could probably been like, well, you know what, man, I'm not the favorite kid because of this or that or whatever it may be.
Well, yeah, Taker was a locker room leader. I mean, obviously he's not that now because he's not there, but like, all
Right.
those guys have the respect, especially for a guy like me. When I entered the locker, I mean, I grew up watching all those guys. So, you know what I mean? They
Mhm.
all had my respect. But, you know, I just know because you talked about John Cena doing the Mass Out Challenge. Like, I was so young at that point, everything was moving fast that I wasn't able to see everything that happened. But like, Vince had really lost faith in me somewhere around the tail end of that first run because there were a couple saying it wasn't even necessarily like, well, Bobby breaking the mask block is one thing, but like that was like with good reason. But it was at my expense, but it was at good reason. But there was a segment with Cena, and it was a master lock challenge where, from what I remember, I think Cena breaks the master lock and then puts it on me. And so, now I can look back at that. I can be like, oh, that was Vince just truly wanting to bury me. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Mhm.
So, and like, they signed me back and they did for whatever reason. But like, again, like from that point, yeah, they picked me up, but like, whatever. Like from that point on, I wasn't able to see at the time, but I can look back at it now and be like, oh, okay, like, you know, but Bobby breaking it's one thing, but now you have Cena like breaking it and putting it on me, like, okay, now you're burying me. So,
Right.
it is what it
Right.
is, man. Like I love it
I,
and
I,
everything, and it'd
I,
be great. It'd be great to have another opportunity, but not under those circumstances. Like I'd rather not have it than have it under those
right.
kind of circumstances, or even have it just so I can be, lay down for somebody every week and have everybody asking like, oh, maybe you'll get them next week. I'm talking about all your regular fucking, people. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because like,
Yeah.
fans can't or and especially casual fans can't see it like, oh, was the match good or bad or anything like that. Still in basic terms, it's like, oh well, you didn't win the match. So
Right.
so
Yeah.
I don't
No,
know,
no, no. I
that's
got
I mean that's first world wrestling problems, but it is what it is.
No, no, I understand, man. And there's certain things that just shouldn't happen. Undertaker should have never lost at WrestleMania. The Master Lock should have never been broken, brother. Let me go ahead and ask you when WWE let you go, did it ever come to your mind like, well, I'm done with wrestling. I'm gonna go do something else because you're still wrestling. You're still out there. You're still doing the thing, man. You're still,
Well,
heck,
that's a great
what was it?
question.
You wrestled for the NWA title.
Yeah.
Um, so talk to us about Chris Adonis. And was there ever, you got let go of the big times? Was there ever a doubt in your mind where it's like, well, I did it. I lived the dream already. Like I, I'm gonna go do something else, man. What made you want to keep going into this?
Well, I'd never wrestled on the indies, and like it's all I'd known. I started so young, and I told you I was so focused on that that there wasn't really any question of doing anything else. It was just like, okay, I guess I do the indies now, and like I don't know. I just all I knew was like I need to. This is what I do. This is all I wanted to do. So whatever form that takes now, I'm going to do it. And so I've continued to do that, and like I've continued to work. I've had I wrestled in TNA for a little while, which, wasn't anything too noteworthy, but I did meet LA Knight and he was great and everything. And, did the NWA, which was great. But like, I finally got to the point now where I'm just like, like I love wrestling and I'd love to continue to do it, but I also feel like I'm still in the same place that I was even when you rewind back then. So now has been the most I've thought about like, well, if there isn't anything for me to aspire to, or if there isn't an opportunity to be had, maybe it is, like I'm wrestling with that. No pun intended. I'm
Mhm.
wrestling with the fact of maybe I do need to just move on because I don't want to just, I don't want to, I feel stagnant. Like, yes, I love working the indies and all that, but I feel stagnant. I don't feel like, there's been any forward advancement or anything like that. And that has started to bother me and made me think about other things, whether it be other, you know, I don't want to be a struggling actor here in LA or anything like that. I'd go on auditions, but like even more like if it was be a firefighter or something like that, just something with stability and benefits for God's sake. Because to me, the most crazy part is for me, I've gone over a decade with not knowing month to month exactly what I'm going to make. And like that's crazy. You know what I mean? Like, it's
Right.
hard to go and not know like, oh, what each, and I've, generally done well and had been booked more weekends than not for darn sure. But, again, just feeling stagnant and just, like things didn't work out. Well, I aspired to try to get to the top of NWA and, I made it pretty far, but was short of that. And, like I would have liked obviously another shot at either WWE or AEW, but I don't know. I just don't feel like that's in the cards. Like I've done everything for myself to try to evolve, like, you know what I mean, as far as look, the sexy Jesus thing and all that. But, you know, I don't know. I don't see where the opportunity is going to come from. So now I'm finally starting to think about that. And we're talking about years later, but,
Right.
but just to answer your question, again, it was just like, this is all I've ever done. So it was just like, it wasn't really like what else I'm going to do. It's just like, all right, what form does it take now?
You brought up a name, LA Knight. It was what, like 18 months ago, 2 years ago. Nobody even really cared about him. He's about our age, and
Yep.
he got over in his 40s.
Oh
I think
yeah,
he was
well,
like
and then well,
40,
yeah,
41.
and you got to yeah, and Carlito's back. Carlito's like my best
Yeah.
friend. So I mean, there's a lot of inspiration there. But like, I don't know. I've just I've remained optimistic, and you never can say never. But I just don't want my story to end with me like being like 49 years old and still at an indie show and looking back and being like, oh, I never got that shot at the big time and now I'm still in, you know what I mean? To me, that's the most depressing thought. So that, and that's what the only reason why, like, I don't look at it as like I'm leaving wrestling, but I definitely look at it in terms of in my life, like maybe I need to pivot, or maybe like
Right.
maybe I can do both. I don't know. But, I just feel like I've done my part and, there's only so much rejection and dejection and stuff you can kind of feel, you know what I mean? So, I'll remain optimistic. I still do my thing. Like I'm wrestling next weekend and all that. But it might be that time because I don't want to continue to feel like I'm running in place.
Well, hey, listen, to all the junkies out there, we're starting a movement, man, that we're gonna see Chris Masters at the Royal Rumble. I mean, yeah, at least that, man. They make so many phone calls to a lot of the
I've
old
tried,
school guys. Hey, get
man.
in the Royal Rumble. You get in there and you get eliminated, obviously. But they bring in a
It's
lot of the
funny.
old school girls. Why not a Chris Masters? Like, come
What's
on, it would
funny.
be awesome to see Chris Masters at the Royal Rumble, man.
It's funny you say that because somebody had mentioned that in my comments the other day about wanting to make a petition for it. And like, honestly, the only way I think it would ever happen is if the fans actually did do something like that. Because I don't think, in my mind, I feel like if presented to Hunter, he would feel like it's been so long, nobody would care. And I feel like that's why a reason why this might not happen. But you know, it's definitely like it's gotten to the point now where I have really wanted it for the last few years, but now like, you know, it feels like almost a dream because I feel like, you know what I mean? It just feels like it's out of reach. But like I would definitely be appreciative if the fan base did try to come through for me, but
Oh
we'll
man,
see.
I'm jumping on my horse and painting my face like Mel Gibson. I'm gonna lead the charge, Chris. I'm telling you, I can't imagine why they. By the way, man, what's your thoughts without getting too much into it? What's your thoughts about where the WWE is now? It's the Triple H era.
It's
Like I said, I don't want
amazing.
to get
It's
and
amazing.
the new TKO involvement, and bringing in the UFC and WWE.
Bro, it's no surprise to me because, like, I don't even tweet a lot, but like, if you go back to when Hunter was taking over, I just knew. I'm like, I can't remember what I said exactly, but I'm like, get ready because wrestling is about to get really something about it's going to get really good again. And I think all the fans are going to be really happy. And it's just because I don't know, at that point, you just kind of knew, man. Like Hunter, one thing Hunter did always have is he always had his finger kind of on the pulse of the wrestling fans. He paid attention. Like, I even think he read the dirt sheets a little bit, stuff like that. But, just to stay in the know. And so I don't know. I kind of felt like, and then you knew of all these pet peeves that Vince had that were kind of at odds with, the wrestling fan community and the IWC and so I mean, I just knew it was gonna do really well, but I think it's even exceeded my expectations when you kind of look at just kind of what's happened, and then even you had The Rock to kind of really kind of like it was already, and like I don't think Rock made wrestling popular like he said he did, and I'm sure a lot of people kind of didn't like that, but he did it because it was already cool again. But Rock was that extra like little boost too. I was like, like I don't know, that last little bit to like really solidify, like when you got the biggest movie star in the world coming in to now validate it, and he's like that's and he we got heel Rock again, so it all worked out for
Right.
the best. But yeah, no, it's been amazing, man. And I think now when you look at it, you can honestly say that as much as Vince was the man for as long as he was and created all that great stuff, that his booking has been bad since well over a decade, probably since 2008 or 9. Vince's booking has been bad. And Hunter, and I think Hunter taking and I'm not saying all of it. Obviously, there's been stuff that's been cool. There always will be. But I know that throughout the last decade, talking to fans, most fans would all say the same thing. It's not what it used to be. Like it's not as cool, or it's missing something. And like I don't think anybody's saying that now.
Yeah, I mean, you run things for so many decades, and at some point, it's time for a change. And look,
Yeah.
no shame. I can't think of somebody who ran a business for decades. I mean, decades. You know what I mean? But at some point, it's time to pass the torch, as they
Oh yeah,
say.
and Vince would have
It-
never done it if it hadn't happened the way it did, which
right.
we should all be thankful for because he wasn't able to be objective about himself and know really, he just knew what he liked at that given moment, and it would change a lot from year to year, and then later on in his life from month to month and week to week. And so, you know, scripts would get torn up like an hour before the show, and you know, so and like you can just tell too, even more important than all that for the talent, I'm not even there. And you can just tell that it's a lot calmer. Like everybody really, it started with Vince, the walking on the eggshells thing and all of that and all the stress. It started with Vince and trickled down. And there's always going to be some level of stress because you're doing live TV, but you can tell it's a lot calmer and a lot more joyous back there, you know.
Okay. All right. Hey, well, Chris, let me just ask you a couple of rapid fire questions, man. Answer them how you'd like to answer them, and just let me know when you're ready, brother.
I'm ready.
All right. So, question number one: if Chris Masters can wrestle against anybody at a WrestleMania main event, dead, alive, whoever it may be, who would you have your dream match against, and why?
Oh man, that's hard to narrow down to just one. I'd probably say Bret the Hitman Hart, just
Mm,
because Bret, like next, you know, I got to wrestle Sean on pay-per-view, although, you know, WrestleMania would be a whole nother deal, right? But, you know, since I got to work with Sean, I think getting to work with Bret would be really cool on a WrestleMania because I think next to Sean, working wise, he would be the coolest experience. I would also say Andre, but I'm not saying Andre for a WrestleMania just because I know that, you know, I know exactly what the match would kind of be. Without even, you
okay.
know, and it'd be fun. I'd be selling a lot for him, and it'd be cool. But because those are the first two guys that kind of come to mind to me. But you know, like Randy Savage would be cool. There's a lot of guys I think about that, like when I see in like these old pictures on Instagram about how cool it'd be to be in the locker room with them, and you know, just see what they were like and stuff like that. And like, you know, Andre the Giant's one of those people. Luckily for me, I've gotten to spend a lot of time with Brett. As of late being, and I'm also the Stu Hart champion. So that's been very cool. But yeah, I'd say
Oh man,
Brett or Andre.
we gotta talk a lot about Bret Hart on another one, man.
Yeah,
Gosh, I'm a
okay.
huge fan of Bret the Hitman.
I should have brought
Bret the Hitman Hart.
I should have brought the Stu Hart title on here, man. My bad.
Oh man,
I got it.
Brett. I'm sorry, Brett. Chris. Next question: what is your dream match to watch? So it's not you in the match. Get two wrestlers, dead or alive, and you want to sit down and watch.
Shawn Michaels versus Eddie Guerrero or Bret Hart versus Kurt Angle, probably.
Yes, yes. You know what? You can't go wrong with any of those. I always said Bret Hart versus Kurt Angle would be one of mine. Bret Hart versus Eddie Guerrero will be one of mine as well. When Shawn Michaels faced Kurt Angle, I was like, wow, this is a dream match for like pure wrestling fans. It's a dream match, and that one did happen, you know. But
Well,
these
here's
other
the thing
matches
too, just
didn't
real
happen.
quick. Here's the thing too, just real quick. And Sean says he doesn't even know about this, but if you look back at Survivor Series, 2005, um, Randy had to step in for Eddie, but like if Eddie hadn't passed, it would have been Eddie teaming up Team SmackDown and Sean teaming up or being the captain of Team Raw, which I think inevitably was going to lead to Sean and Eddie at WrestleMania. Because there's one thing, like looking back at it, you know that Sean and Eddie would have got in the ring and there would have been like that magic, like the crowd would have been buzzing. And then they would have rolled with that going into, because I think what they ended up doing is going into the Vince thing too, because obviously they had to, you know, it was probably a tentative plan. They were probably planting the seed for it, but so we almost might have got it.
Wow, man. Wow. All right. Without burying anybody, so you don't have to name any names, was there anybody that Chris Masters refused to work with because they were just unsafe in the ring?
No, no, there's never been anybody. There's never been anybody that reckless. I mean, there's been people that I've known. You know, you put your hand up or you protect yourself and stuff, but nobody so much to the extent where I was like, I'm not working this guy. I mean, there was a guy a couple months ago who was obviously had too many drinks before we went out to work, and I had let the promoter know, hey, I'm watching. Yeah, dude, I told him I'm like I'm going to protect myself out there. I'm not letting the, I'm just giving you the heads up. And so, yeah, man, that's the independent scene for you.
Wow, man. Wow, wow, wow. Um, that's crazy. That's crazy. I seen some sad things, man. When it comes to like Jake the Snake and even Jeff Hardy going out there and they're inebriated, and it's like, wow, you know what? Like that's sad to see, man. You see them go out there and they're wasted like that, and since then they turned
Yeah,
their
but
lives around.
oh yeah, well, man, the wrestling business it's very dirty when I first got into it, man. There's still a lot of that going on, but like, I'm happy to say now it's cleaned itself up tremendously. You don't have addicts in the locker room, and you know, like I went through some of that and got myself clean, thank God. And yeah, it's a much better day, man. You're not going to have as many wrestling deaths going forward as you did. And one thing that somebody told me that makes a lot of sense is a lot of those guys were very reckless because they didn't know if wrestling was going to last. Like they went through the territories and the early WrestleManias and all that, and yeah, there was all the success and they were living like rock stars, but they all didn't think it was going to last. So they were just like they were living every day to its fullest, and like you know what I mean. Now I think we know wrestling is here to stay, and so people are and we're much more evolved people, obviously.
Right, right. Next question, Chris. What is a match that you would love to have with stipulation wise, and what is one where you're like, no, I'm good? So, would you like to have a TLC match, tables match, Hell in the Cell match? Which one of those matches would you really love to have where you're gonna say like, man, I know I can do great? And then which one of those matches are you like, I don't know about that. I'd rather stay away from those type of matches.
Let's see. I like the ladder matches and the cage matches and all that stuff, but I don't know the stuff I like to stay away from. I mean, I would do the fluorescent light tubes and stuff too, but
Ooh.
yeah, it's not like it's. I rather, I don't. I'd rather stay away from the fire and stuff like that. I mean, again, I would do it under the right circumstances, but like, I don't know. I can't think of a match per se though that I'm like, no, I wouldn't do this because again, even if I had to fall in thumbtacks, I'd fall in thumbtacks. Again, if I was asked to and it made sense and all that, like so. I can't think of one I would refuse, but I know that if you were to ask me, I'm sure like the ladder match would be a pref. Like I was tentatively booked to do like dungeon wrestling and work Cardona twice, and the first one would be regular, the second one was going to be a ladder match. So that I was pretty excited about. Um, you know, but in terms of a match that I don't know, I can't think of any that I wouldn't necessarily want.
Okay, okay. And Chris, what would be bigger for you, man? Something like winning the Royal Rumble, uh being main eventing WrestleMania. What would be like a dream for Chris Masters?
Well, I accomplished one of them. My two things, the two biggest things for me before like going into pro wrestling were win the world title and work Shawn Michaels on a pay per view, like not just on a Raw or something, on a pay per view. Because to me, a big part of my childhood was Shawn Michaels on pay per view. Because to me, he was the only guy who would give you a performance that was worth shoveling out money for. Not that I did. I had a black box, of course, and got everything. you know, but again, like he was the one guy. I don't want to say he's the one guy because obviously there were other great guys, but Sean specifically was a guy who would give you pay. Like he would be great on Raw and all that, but then like pay per view, he would even turn it on more. So like I just put that on the pinnacle. I'm like winning the world title and working, obviously main eventing WrestleMania, but that's like easy, you know what I mean? And
Mhm.
uh, I guess winning the world title and main eventing a WrestleMania with Shawn, main eventing WrestleMania with Shawn Michaels and beating him for the world
Okay.
title. That would be accomplishing all of them in one space. But like at least I did get to work Shawn on pay per view. So for me, that was a huge check off the list. Like, oh wow, because you got to imagine, I didn't know if our paths would even cross. Like even when I think I started training for wrestling, he hadn't even come back yet. So, and like even just generationally, you just don't know. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot. I didn't get to wrestle Brett, like we talked about. I didn't get to wrestle a lot of guys, but for whatever reason, I was lucky enough, and we were on the right side as far as the face and heel thing that I got a chance to work with Sean, and he was my first kind of real program. So,
Mm.
you know, I'm sure. And when I look back at that too, what makes it cool is it came right after Hulk Hogan, which if you look like him, Sean was kind of enthusiastic to work with me, being a younger guy and stuff, after kind of what he had gone through with Hulk, and you can kind of see it on him, you know, because it was just going to be such a different experience.
Right,
Right,
right.
right.
Yeah. Man, Chris, this has been great, brother.
Yeah.
I feel
Yeah,
like we
we'll,
just scratched the surface, man.
oh yeah, we'll do it again, man. I know you were talking about following up on like Brett or something like that. Like
Mm.
I'm going to Dungeon Wrestling in like beginning of November, and Brett said he was going to give me the Heart Calgary tour, which I'm going to try to hold him to. So I'll let you know how that goes maybe next time.
Man.
And I'm defending against Jinder, so wish me luck because everything's pointing to me possibly losing the Dungeon Wrestling title, but let's hope not. I'm gonna put a fight up.
So where could people find you, Chris, if they want to follow your career today? Where can people find you?
The place I'm most active is on Instagram, and there I'm constantly putting out like you know, clips of my weekly whatever I've done, and you know I try to update that. So that's at Chris Masters 310. I do have a Twitter. I just you know I mainly retweet. I tweet here and there. I'm just not as active on there. So if you're really like trying to get me where I'm active, Instagram is a spot. I still haven't gone. I tried TikTok, man, but it's not very user friendly in my book. So like I might have to give it a go again. But like I wasn't having as easy a time posting on there, so I kind of took a little break from that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Well, Chris,
Chris,
any message you want to throw out there? Any last words? Any shout out? Anything, brother? The floor is yours.
No, I just, you know, to all the junkies out there watching, I guess we call it, I appreciate everybody's support. I appreciate all the good questions from you. And just to go back to one thing we talked about earlier, man, like that Rumble thing is an aspiration to me. So I'm not holding you to that petition, but if we could get enough people, that would definitely be appreciated. But either way, I got nothing but love for everybody because when it comes down to it, I'm still a junkie, so to speak. You know, lifelong fan, and you know, I'll always be connected to that, man. That's my earliest. That's me. You know, I bleed it.
Right. That's right, man. We're starting a movement, man. We're doing this. All right. Well, hey, that is the one Mr. Chris Masters right there with the Master Lock Vicious move, man. I love it, man. Chris, thank you so much for your time, brother. And I hope to have you back on because we just have so much more to get into. And good luck with your career. And we are going to have that movement. I'm telling you, man.
Yeah, well,
Get
yeah,
you
just
in the Royal Rumble.
yeah, just stay in touch with me. We'll be in touch, man. Just you know, keep reaching out, and we'll have me back on the show leading up to all that, and I'll give you an update and all that, man. So definitely much appreciated.
All right, junkies, go follow one Mr. Chris Masters on Instagram, man. Show him your support. And we will catch you guys on the next one. See you guys later.